Welcome to Cretoni Entertainment. I'm Chris, and Bree is sitting tonight out. Nothing is wrong. She just wasn't in a place to play Final Fantasy 1 tonight for this episode. She actually just downloaded the newest update to Animal Crossing and wanted to dig into that so much that I'm not even sure she's aware of my existence at this point. But hey, that's okay. That's an easier night for me. Tonight, I want to talk about one-page rules. We've talked about this several times on the channel so far. We've did a battle report that we called Age of the Grid, where we did a one-page rules Age of Fantasy skirmish game and subbed in Power Rangers and Gold Arms and putties for our particular armies and played the game. And I've been working, as I've teased multiple times, on building my own Power Rangers list for one-page rules. We even did a video on kind of designing some of the bad guys using their points calculator. So I wanted to step back and kind of talk about what one-page rules is. For those of you who are veteran wargamers, one-page rules is very, very simple. I've heard it described as Warhammer without the BS. It's a fair way to say it. It's a simple set of rules that cover things like sci-fi, fantasy, rank and flank games, skirmish games, and actually a space fleet game, all in one. And it's done by some guys who decided to kind of make simple war games that are model agnostic. And that means you can take any models you want. You can play this game with them. You don't need a specific company's models. You don't need anything like that. You can take any models you want, and you can make it work as long as they kind of represent what's in the list. For those of you who aren't veteran wargamers, this is, as it says right on their website, right here at onepagerules.com, wargaming made simple and fun. And that's what it is. It's very, very simple. So right here on their website, they've got a number of things here, and they've got their different games. They've got some one-off games, but really, if you haven't ever touched one-page rules before, or even touched a miniatures game much at all, this is where you want to start, right here at the Start Here tab. So we're going to go into there real quick, and it's going to give you some basic information. They do have a Patreon where you can sign up, and for a couple of bucks a month, you can access to what they call the full rulebook, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and some additional 2D chits that you can print out and cut up and use for your game. Or at the $10 tier, you can get access to a lot of their STL files if you have a 3D printer. This is actually what drove Bree and I to buy our 3D printer. In fact, I'm probably going to set up a print of something tonight because I haven't printed in a couple of days. But like I say, you can get started right here in 5 minutes. So they've got kind of their core games here. They've got a little video on here that gives you some information. But realistically, the one that kind of strikes our interest is Age of Fantasy Skirmish, and to another degree, Age of Fantasy. This is where I'm applying my Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid stuff. But any of these games work. So you'll notice I'm twisting this with an Age of the Grid style slant. Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid minis, wonderful minis by Renegade Games, attached to a wonderful board game. But we can do more with them because they're such nice minis. Why only play with a board game? So I'm going to just go to the Age of Fantasy Skirmish here because we have actually done this before on the channel. And we played some things wrong on it, but it was the first time we were playing it, so not a big deal. But the core rules link that attaches there, this is the core rules of Age of Fantasy Skirmish. This is it. This tells you everything you need to play a basic game of Age of Fantasy Skirmish. The only thing you're really missing out on this page is universal special rules, which we'll kind of talk about momentarily, and missions. There's only one mission attached to here. It's not very complex, but really you can put any win condition you want on the game to create your own mission, or there are some other options for you as well. Now, I mentioned the special rules there. A lot of units are going to have some kind of special rule, and these can range from things like ambush and blast and poison and things like that. And those are all detailed on a second page. So you can print this whole game out on a two-sided sheet of paper, and it's going to have your special rules, stealth, enemies get -1 to shooting when targeting this unit, fearless, gain +1 to your morale checks, all that stuff. And it's going to describe to you up here how to actually play the game. So it's going to kind of give you an idea. The most important rule is, I'm hitting, I'm doing over here, all sorts of stuff that just looks unprofessional. Whenever the rules are unclear, use common sense and personal preference. Tells you what a quality test is. You basically have two stats in this game. You have quality and you have defense. Quality is going to determine if you are successful in hitting your targets, passing your morale checks, all that stuff. And it'll give you a value, and that value will be listed as a number with a plus sign next to it, and that just tells you need to get that number or higher to succeed. A roll of 1 always fails, a roll of 6 always succeeds. It's got some basic information for picking your army, recommends in the skirmish game, recommends 250 points per player to start with, tells you kind of where the battlefield should be played, a 4x4 surface. Some ideas on deployment, and it tells you kind of how the game is played. It's played in rounds. On your activation, you're going to pick one of your units, which is usually going to be one model in the skirmish version. It'll be a full unit in the main version, but some of the weaker enemies or some of the weaker models will be in clusters of 3 to 5 guys, even in the skirmish. It kind of tells you what the different move actions are. If you take the hold action, you move 0 inches and you can shoot. If you take the advance action, you move up to 6 inches and you can shoot after you move. And it kind of tells you then the movement, how to shoot, how to take your weapon profile and take a shot, how to do melee, how to apply wounds to your models, what it means to be knocked out versus stunned, when to take morale checks, and kind of the basics of how terrain works. Now, there is an expanded rulebook that's also available for free. So we'll jump over to that here. And the expanded rulebook kind of looks like this. Now, this is actually the full rulebook through the Patreon, but it's also the expanded rulebook. And basically, over on the side of the contents, if you just download the core rulebook, which is free, it's just going to be this highlighted section here going through special rules. The advanced rules like terrain placement, extra missions, random events, all that is part of the full rulebook you get through being part of the Patreon. But you get this basic rules for free. And why would you need these basic rules if you have everything on one page? Well, if you're not a long time into wargaming, you may find some confusion on the one page on, hey, this says I do this, but I don't know 100% what that means. It says, what's line of sight mean, things like that. And it has all the same stuff, but kind of expanded here. So that whole general principles, that most important rule they talked about, tells you what models and units are, how to read their stats, when to deal with dice and rerolls, how to measure distances correctly. So, this little diagram over here on the right, when you measure the distance, you measure from the front of a base to the front of a base. So if we had a 4-inch movement, I'd measure, 0 inches at the front of this guy's base, and when he's done moving, the front of his base can be no more than 4 inches away. Whereas in the other diagram, it shows you what might be wrong about that. And it just expands these ideas on how to measure things out and what certain things mean. So if you're struggling with the one page, you can flip through these 15 pages to kind of expand on that knowledge. Now, there's also another set of, they're calling them army books, but really they're 1 or 2 pages as well. You're going to need to know how to pick models for the game, because it did say you're going to pick something up to 250 points. So where do we get that in this skirmish game? Well, they also have a series of what they call army books here, and you can download these from their websites as well. In this particular case, I pulled up the Age of Fantasy Skirmish Eternal Wardens. Some would say these are very similar to the Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Wow, I've completely blanked out on the name. Stormcast Eternals. I don't know what just happened there. I apologize. It looks like a 2-page book, but really it's 1 page, because this front page has a little bit of their background story, has a link to the website, and the second page is really what we're interested in, because this is actually the rules over here on this side, and it's got a lot of information on here, and this can look pretty intimidating, but the reality is it's pretty easy to read. And we used this particular army list for our first game of playing Heroes of the Grid in a wargaming scenario. We just went through this list and we picked out some things we thought would be appropriate to Power Rangers, and we shifted them over. So, for example, we saw this right here, Eternal Lord. The little bracket there means you get 1 model in the unit. Quality 3, defense 3, equipment. He has a hand weapon with 4 attacks and AP 1. 4 attacks, A4 meaning you roll 4 dice when you make your attacks, AP1 meaning you subtract 1 from the opponent's defense rolls every time they take a defense against you. And he has the special rules Furious Hero and Tough 3, meaning he has 3 life. We thought this would be appropriate for our Red Ranger. We were playing the Mighty Morphin. We thought this would be a good Jason Lee Scott because he was the leader of our group. This Eternal Lord is a hero. He seems to fit the bill. So he's got a points cost over here. So it tells us he's 60 of our 250 points. He's also got upgrades A, so we can actually go down to the bottom part here and look at the A section of the upgrades, and it'll tell us if there's anything special we can do with this guy. So it says we can replace that hand weapon, that 4-attack AP1 hand weapon, with anything here. We can 2 hand weapons, attacks 4 AP1 for 15 more points. I know that looks the same, but when you're dealing with 2 hand weapons, you multiply it by the number. So he'd actually have 8 attacks at AP1. You can give him a great weapon for 4 attacks at AP value 3. You can give him a spear. I think we went with a great weapon and called it a power sword. It's also got some other things here, so you can say upgrade with 1. You can give him the Relic Banner or the Herald Horn or the Celestial Beacon for these number of points. And when you see something like this, the Herald Horn or the Relic Banner that's not covered in the core rules, it's also going to be on this page. It's typically going to be built right into this special rules section. So Herald Horn, when the hero is activated, pick a friendly unit within 12 inches, roll 1 die on a 4+. That unit and all friendly units within 12 inches may immediately move by up to 6 inches. We actually gave this to Jason, and we kind of renamed it for ourselves. We called it Leadership to kind of reflect that he was the leader of the Mighty Morphin team. And then you've also got some models that are going to have the special rule Wizard. We didn't use them in our game if you watched our battle report, but Wizards will be able to have access to these spells down here in the bottom. They can cast one of them per turn. It's real easy. It just says, the name of the spell, what it takes to cast it, and then what it does. And so to cast it on your turn, you would pick the wizard, you'd pick the spell you want to do, you would roll a 6-sided die, and you would add your wizard level to it, and you're trying to beat the number that's on here, and then you get that ability. And really, guys, that's it. It's that simple. We could continue playing Power Rangers off of here. Like I said, we did Jason as an Eternal Lord. What did we do here? We did, I think we just did Trini as just a Liberator with 2 hand weapons. We did, I think, Zach as a Retributor with the Shock Hammer. I think that's what we did. Or maybe we did the Decimate. I don't remember what we actually did Zach as at this point. We did Billy as a Protector because he had the Shock Glaive. The weapon seemed appropriate. And then we did Kimberly as I think we did her as a Judge, but I think we gave her the alternate weapon. That's found under the H heading. And I apologize. I got some yawning going on here tonight, and you know me, I'm too lazy to actually edit this video. So you could actually pull out Age of Fantasy Skirmish, and you could pull out a Power Rangers team, and you could build a Power Rangers team using this army list and just changing the names of some things. You could also sign up for the Patreon, use their points calculator to build their own. I am building my own list on the points calculator. I'm not going to share the nitty-gritties of it because I don't want to give away how the points are calculated. I feel that's probably not my place, and that's not the intent of joining the Patreon. But when the list is complete, I will share it here and elsewhere. So if you want to try Age of Fantasy Skirmish or even Age of Fantasy, because I'm writing rules for Age of Fantasy as well with the points calculator, so you could do a whole army of Rangers. You could have multiple teams of Rangers on the table, and they could be fighting multiple teams of bad guys, and it would be a very impressive game to play. But all you need to play is a tape measure, a set of dice, and a willingness to download some free rules and use a little imagination picking stuff out. So that's all I really want to talk about here today. Check out onepagerules.com. It's a free game. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a lot of fun. It plays very, very quickly. It's very engaging. And if you're a veteran wargamer, you've got plenty of models, I'm sure, already. You can bring them right into this game with no issue. If you're not a veteran wargamer, you just play Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid, you've got all those minis. Let's bring them into another game. Let's get more action out of them on the table. So thank you all for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button for more content. Hit the bell button for notifications. And I guess without further ado, we'll see you next time.